Hello there, everybody. It is Duff Designs. Today we are taking a look at another one of the courses I've been sent in. Today we're taking a look at St. Royal Golf Links. Taking a look at this course, it is on the shorter end of things. It is only 4,600 yards, but I think it'd be in for something very interesting. So let's go ahead and hop on in there, wasting no time today. This course, from what I saw from the screenshot, it looks like it uses a similar construction style to Baron Point that I built a little while ago. So we've definitely got that dead forest vibe out here. You can tell this is one of those courses where you're kind of meant to not really look around too much. You're kind of just meant to stay on ground level. If you start looking around, you get immersion breaks pretty quick. So maybe, depending on how this course goes, it might be something we'll look at as we play on, because there is a lot of empty room just outside of the course. But if that becomes too much of an issue as we play, because from here on ground level, obviously you can't see much of it. But yeah, so far it's a very interesting looking property. Seems like this is kind of a down and back type course. You probably have 9 ending somewhere back in the end of the course and coming and taking us back, if I had to guess. We've got some minor houses here, probably a clubhouse up there as well, and another little street here. Our streets do start and stop pretty drastically. I do really like whatever you've got going on right here. Oh yeah, the little railroad track using a retaining wall goes across the town. Very nice. This little town is very beautiful though. I do like the detail in here. Not too sure how about these little things being in the middle of all this, but railroad also kind of comes to a dead end. Some good little direct decorations. We'll take a little bit closer look at those as we get to them. Got a big shoreline. Let's see if we've got the little water trip. We do not. If you want to have the sand run all the way down into the water, you're going to have to make your own water body and create it a few feet above the original water level. And once you have a water body that is, say, 2 feet or so above this, you can place another water body below it, and then your sand will run into your water. If you want to figure out how to do this without just me explaining it, watch my video on bleeding bunkers. It'll teach you how to make nice coastlines and just overall get surfaces to bleed in the water to make them look better. All right, enough flying around here. I think it's time we take a look at the course. I do want to say the reason why this looks very similar to Barren Point is because it uses one of the same grass textures and one of these same trees. If I had to guess, it might have taken some inspiration off that. I don't know though. Let's go ahead and hop in right here on the first tee. Or immediately off the first tee, big problem. You don't want fences right here. It's just a little visual thing. It's kind of blocking a little bit of your hole, and it's just not something you're going to have on an actual golf course. You're not going to have a fence directly in front of the tee like this. You might have it if it's the road was like 5 feet lower or something. You might have a fence in there because it's not actually impeding someone's travel. All right, this is some very interesting layouts we've got here. Really not too much of a reason to ever go up here, I don't think. I think it's a little bit too slopey to really try for. You might be able to inch one around the corner, though. Yeah, it's definitely what this is meant for, to take a ball down and have it come down here. Do you like the bunkers? It's got the little roll-ins to the bottoms with high back edges. Yeah, I like the bunkers. They look really interesting. And I like all the movements in the fairway. It's not just a smack your ball down there type of deal. I'll say this is a very empty area, but I think that's okay because it's so close to the tee. If I hit a good shot here, I should be able to play over all of this. But I kind of fasted it. Oh yeah, nice little catch there. Hold the balls up, bring them back into the sand.
And second shot here on the first.
Ooh, I do really like this bunker right here. It is far enough out where if I was probably in the fairway, it's almost like a optical illusion, as this could be the bunker guarding the green. But instead, you get a little bitty one right over here guarding it. And you got another bunker hidden back there. It's pretty nice. You can play off the hill, and if you go a little too long, it'll punish you by putting you in the bunker. This might even be a double green. It is. Maybe a tad bit small for a double green, but we'll see how the green sizes are throughout the course. If all the green sizes are roughly this size, then this is just fine. In terms of our green movement, very simple. Not a lot of green movement going on, but it's consistent green movement. We've got big left to right across this whole section of the green, and then it looks like a little bit that's going to kind of bring you in and hold you up against here. Don't know how I feel about that. I would like to have seen this hill be more of a feature you play off of instead of one that you have to avoid, because I think landing shots into this and having them kick off to this green, or landing into this slope and having them stop on this side would be a lot better than just having a little bowl right here, you know? It just give a little bit more playability from this fairway. But overall, nice green. Nothing to complain about here. Very simple slopes. See if the greens continue to stay this small or not as we play. Because these are definitely on the smaller side. Just looking at these two. Nothing wrong with that, of course. Something to note.
Nice chip. This putt's tracking.
Alright, in and out of one pretty quick. Looks like we got a blind tee shot right here.
Tailwind on this hole.
Find a blind tee shot every now and again. If I recall from the first tee, we also couldn't really see our landing area much, which hopefully that won't become a consistent issue. I don't really like that my drive's landing here. I feel like this hole, my drive is meant to land in this area to kind of bottleneck me up right here. I feel like you need to back this tee up to where drives are landing about right here or right here instead of having them land all the way up here. And I am using your furthest back tee box, and I noticed that your course was very short, only 6,800 yards. This is probably one of those holes where you could have backed. Where you could have backed stuff up. Looking at this, yeah, there's really no reason why you couldn't have added another tee box, maybe back over here somewhere, something like that. Also, we'll have to keep a look at this. I'm going to take a look at the scorecard real quick. I think your tees might be a little bit too close in general. And distances. Yeah, I would say your tees are a little bit too close. You see how we've only got, what is that, a 300-yard difference here, and then a 300-yard difference here from top to back. I mean, I don't know. It seems a little bit too close, especially here. You see how the whites and the blues are way too close. I typically do about 30 to 40 yards in between my tees. I want to have about 300 yards in between each one. So, like, you see how your silver and your whites are? That's about the distance I want in between each and every tee, is about 300 or so. This gives you a nice, more realistic span of your distances. And it creates a lot more interesting courses, because instead of having all your tee boxes shoved in one location like we do here, you have to stagger them and create new tee box locations, and it makes the course a little bit more interesting instead of just having a bunch of tees in one spot. Not a huge thing.
This could roll into the rough, I think.
This course, it is,
Second
I don't know,
shot
it's
on hole number 2.
very tight in terms of like the routing and everything. There are holes right next to holes, it seems like, throughout this whole course. This green right here, simple little green again. Nothing wrong with it. I don't really like this breakaway right here. I would have just kept this hole right to left, the whole part of the screen. Not really a point to have players' balls kind of coming in and gathering right here. But other than that, it's a good green. I like it. Nothing crazy about it, which that may end up being a problem that we run into as we go further down this course, is that these greens are so small and so fairly simple that there's really not going to be too much interest derived from the greens, which is something you have to fight for in this game is to keep people interested in your greens. So like stuff like this is a lot more interesting where you have this wild contours in the green edge. Makes it into a lot more interesting of a hole. In terms of all this, typically I don't like red slips in the backs of bunkers, but I think in this situation it might be okay unless there's a pin position right here. I think this bunker is fine, but I would typically avoid red slopes when chipping out of bunkers onto that. I would rather be chipping into a red slope into going down one. But yeah, I don't mind this at all. Can't really see a lot of it. I like to get more visuals from the tee. So far, we really haven't been able to see much from our tee shots. Like even here, I can see this little bunker, but I can't really see much at all of the green surface. And that's something as a designer you want to try to have in all of your courses. You want to be able to see what you're hitting at most of the time. It's okay to have some blind shots here and there across your course, but you wanna be able to see the surface that you're hitting it to. It makes it a lot more intriguing. I can't remember what designer it was that went by. That might have been McKinsey or someone like that. But basically, one of their big essential rules is if you can, you need to have the surface where the ball's landing visible. It makes it a lot better for the player. Alright, this is another one of those ones where I feel like my drive is just landing too far. I feel like my drive is meant to land more like right in here, to where I can have a hero shot to get over these bunkers, or I can play it safe and play up. I do like this idea where you're hitting over the stuff. I think this is St. Andrews that has a hole like this, where you're hitting over the edge of stuff. Check real quick if this is out of bounds. It is not. I would highly recommend making these areas out of bounds so players don't accidentally hit a bad shot into here and then are forced to play out of the city, you know. So I definitely would have added some out of bounds in there. And back to this tee up, probably 40, 50 yards. I think it's just a little bit too close. It just makes this hole a little bit too easy. It's a terrible shot. But see, I even hit a terrible shot and I still flew over this bunker. That's something you really don't want to have. You want, when you have features out here that you build and that you put a lot of time into, you want to have people play around them instead of just hitting over them. So I hate to see someone who spends a lot of time in shaping and making a fairway look really, really nice, and then you play over it all. Or you spend a lot of time making a really nice water hazard where your hole runs along, and then you just hit over it all. And unless it's a visual thing that it's really, really nice visually to look at, you want to have that be involved in your player's shot.
This is what our third
Shot of the day. I could have actually seen how this hole plays normally because it is a par 5.
Sweet.
And I don't really have too much to complain about the greens. It's the green style to be small and not really have a whole lot going on.
We got a tailwind blowing.
It's not my preferred style. I usually like more medium-sized greens with a lot going on, kind of some tiers and stuff in here. For the most part, the greens, other than the shape of them, the contours are very basic. Kind of odd. We have a bunker here that doesn't have the rough on it. If you're going to have this style like this, which is beautiful, I like this style, I would keep it consistent. I wouldn't just all of a sudden have one bunker like this. And yet again, we have a hole where I feel like I'm just hitting over everything. I feel like my ball's flying too far. Because I'm going to end up landing out here when I end up adding my extra power to it, and then the wind's going to put me all the way up here. Wind is nothing you can really account for when basing your landing zones. I don't really like the fairway here. It seems a little bit too jagged, and then everything's just mounding out here. Just everything's kicking you off the fairway here. Which isn't the worst in the world. It's a short hole, but I personally just don't really like any of this. It doesn't really seem to have too much rhyme or reason. Seems almost like a bunch of random hills. I would have probably made a nice low over here for players' balls to kick into. Right now it is kind of a low. It's just got... I don't know. I don't really like this whole fairway and these bunkers and any of this right here. Me personally, I would start fresh here and just make a new hole. But it is all based off of the designer. Every designer likes something different. I personally can't see what the designer was going for on this hole. So instead, I'm just going to fly over it all and go for the green.
Nice swing onto that one.
And that's something I wanted to say. Just, you're in a video game and we do have a 6,400-yard course. That is just way too short for any course in this game. 6,400 yards is nothing. You're gonna need something a little bit longer than that most of the time, unless you are just trying to have a really fun, enjoyable course. There are really nice, fun courses that are that short, and it can be really, really hard on these short courses to make it challenging for your players because, I mean, they're just outdistancing everything you put at them. All right, yeah, I'm gonna start to say that our greens are getting a little bit too boring in terms of our contours. Seems like most of these greens are just simply right to left or left to right. There's really not a lot of tiers or a lot of interesting swells, no burets, no anything like that in these greens. They seem very basic in terms of how they're built, which is a consequence of the greens being too small, in my opinion. They can be this small. I personally like my greens built bigger so that you can actually put more into it. When you have greens this small, there's not really a lot that you can actually do when building these greens. There's not a lot of contours that you can put internally. You might be able to put one major slope in the green, and that's about it, just because of how big they are, and you need 4 pinnable locations on all these greens.
We can get a kick left. It'd be nice.
A little bit long there.
Green, unfortunate.
I don't know. I
Good
think
job
it's
with that chip shot.
see how the greens go as we continue on, but they do seem just a little bit too small, a little bit too simple. I do like how they've got all these wild contours in them, but I still feel like they're too small for some of these wild contours. Like this green, for example, it is wild. It is a double green. I feel like it's just too small to be a double green and to have enough interesting contours in it. And this is kind of what I mean right here by the tees being a little too close. And I can tell, I don't think you quite flatten this all the way. You see how this tee is floating, and I think this one is as well. Something you just want to kind of pay attention to as you're going around your course, the little micro details. Also, me personally, I hate heavy rough, or just this. You see how it kind of turns into like a hilly dirt texture? I hate that when it runs directly into light rough or fairway or any other texture. I would like to see a heavy rough buffer through here to kind of get rid of this really straight line right here. These lines kind of stand out too much. You see how you got this nice little transition into rough here? It just kind of keeps them looking a little bit better, you know? I did notice as we were going around the course, you do have some small locations that have just little bump outs of just light rough. I don't mind that. Just be very careful with it, because you can get a little bit too carried away and it can look a little bit weird in places. Alright, this fairway right here. See, I understand what you're going for on this one. You've got a little catch here to bring balls in here. If you go a little long here, you can bounce all the way down into this. I don't really like it. I feel like almost there's too many fairway bunkers out here. What the hell is going on with that little thing? It's weird. Little bitty, tiny bunker over here. I don't really like that, to be honest with you. I feel like there's places for tiny bunkers. I don't think this is really one of them. It's just so out of the way and so hidden. It almost feels like a trap. I mean, I guess it is a sand trap, but like it it just feels a little out of place right there. I don't know. Again, I don't really like this fairway a whole bunch. It's just not my favorite. I'm sure some other people would have different opinions about it. But again, can't see the hole. Something that I still don't like. I would like to be able to visually see where I'm hitting my balls. Even if it's not a lot, just seeing a little bit of that surface as I'm hitting into it. And this is what I mean by these greens are so small. Like this thing is tiny. Like, you expect this to be an entire green for a hole and have 4 different interesting pin locations. That's something that I feel like you're missing out on very heavily out here by having such small greens. You've got 4 pin locations. At least I didn't even check, honestly. There might not be 4 pin locations. But there's no way that you can have 4 interesting pin locations with the greens being this small. I mean, that's one thing that really makes pin positions interesting is when you decide, oh, I'm going to go replay one of my courses. Oh, let me play pin set 3 today so I can get a completely different feel. When you have really well built greens, you go out there and you play a different pin position, and it almost feels like a different course because those pin positions affect your play so drastically. When you have greens like this, where if I were to put 4 pins and have it be on this right half of the green because this is a double green, might have one here, might have one here, might have one here, might have one here. I mean, there's nowhere for your pins to go. There's very, very limited room in what you could choose from. And all 4 of those pins are going to play relatively exactly the same. There's not going to be much difference in them at all. And I think that's kind of, as I'm exploring your course, is kind of the bigger problem I'm having with these tiny little greens that also don't really have a whole bunch going on. Like, this one actually does have a lot going on, but it's too small to have this much going on. There's way too much red and yellow on the screen. You see how all of this is a yellow right here? I've got a yellow slope right here, a big red right here. All of this is yellow. So you've really only got this little bitty area to be pinnable, and maybe a pin up here that's really, really fast on the side of a hill. I guess that's what I have a problem with these smaller greens. There's just not a lot of room for you to work with overall. You're very limited in what you can do and what you can actually place down.
Ooh, we're heading for the green here.
And of course, I catch that big old slope.
Oh, missed the green on that one.
Yeah, I feel like this back tier, I would rather see this be a kind of a plateau or a push-up area instead of it just being an entire slope. To have a tucked pin position in the back of the screen would be a lot nicer than just having all of it take your ball off the green.
Oh, nice little chip there.
Very close there.
And it looks here like that'll keep you right there at 3 under.
Let's say,
Heads up. We
just
got
taking a look at all this.
wind to deal with.
I think this is all the same rock, or it's the same 2 types of rock. I believe you just use the cluster place. I would highly, highly advise against using cluster place on rock. Uh, it just looks ugly. I mean, this isn't the worst that I've seen from cluster placing, but it is very ugly. I mean, you can tell that you just came in here and slammed a bunch of rocks down in this area and then scattered some out here. And what makes it look the ugliest is that these rocks are protruding. They're sitting on top of the ground. They don't really feel like they've been there for a long time. They don't feel like these rocks have been in the ground for 100 years. It feels like somebody came out here with a dump truck and just dumped a bunch of rocks on top of the ground. Uh, so when you're doing your rocks, you want to have different sizes. You want to have big rocks. You want to have small rocks. You want to have brown rocks. You want to have black rocks. You want to have white rocks. You want to have every type of rock there is in the ground. Not every type. You want to have a variety of types of rocks. Because what happens when you have this one type of rock, it just looks so out of place. And especially out here on this course where you really only have rocks along this coastline. There's only like 2 holes with rocks on them. So it can be very, very jarring to have no rocks on the entire course. All of a sudden come to this one hole. There's a bunch of rocks. They're all the same rock and they're all the same size. It can throw you off a lot. And now that I've actually been sitting here for a minute, I just noticed your light rough line right here. This is what I was saying by be careful about where you do this at. Having a set width on your rough is typically the best idea when having it outside of fairways. And then you might have a select location or 2 where light rough sticks out. This is not one of those locations right here. This just looks very, very out of place, along with this little section of fairway that kicks out right here. It just seems very out of place to have this. And I'm sure this is something that you probably didn't even pay any attention to when you were building, or at least not much, because this is a short par 4, so you're landing all the way up here on the green. Yeah, I also don't like it right here. I don't like this difference in width right here. And it just kind of cuts into your bunker. It just seems a little bit unprofessional. Like the lines weren't properly chosen. They were just kind of willy-nilly thrown on this hole. Yeah, just be very, very careful in where you decide to do this. Because I've done stuff like this before where I'll have a light rough that just runs around the entire thing. And then, say, back here, I'll have like a big section of light rough to help balls that roll a little long. Or like off the tee shot, off to the right side, I'll have an area where people's drives can land. So they're not just laying in heavy rough all the time. They have a little chance to get a better lie in the light rough. But you need to be very strategic with where you use that. All right, short par four. I'm fine with smaller greens on short par fours. It does seem to be our kind of memo out here to have really tiny greens that are kind of wild. That was a little fast. Felt that one. I will say for a short par four, this hole is very easy. The green is a little bit challenging, but I don't really think it is challenging enough to warrant the distance of the hole. It's just too easy. There's gonna be way too many birdies on this hole. With a short par four, you want to have it to be where your player needs to hit a perfect drive to be able to get an eagle. And if they mess up even a little bit, you want to have that par to be very challenging to get. If I feel like almost anywhere I hit around or near this green, I have a good chance of getting birdie.
Looks like a par 4 for this one.
And then we got another short par four back to back. I would advise against having another drivable hole, especially back to back like that. Uh, yeah, this is what I was gonna worry about. This course is just a little too short. I mean, what have we had? We've had 3 or 4 holes where we can reach the green just on this 9, which is definitely something you want to avoid. We haven't had a long par 4 out here, I don't believe. I don't think I've had anything over like a sand wedge coming into a par 4, which is something you definitely want to try to add into your course. You want to have variable distances on all your par 3s, all your par 4s, and all your par 5s. Like, for example, this par 5 is 522, next par 5 is 570, next par 5 is 516. You want to have that spread so that players are hitting different clubs. Players aren't hitting the same distance every single hole. Like, let's look at some of these par 4s. We got 430, 450, or 340, 350, 375, 340, 305. And we have a lot of shorter holes out here where I'm just going to end up hitting wedges into them. It seems like, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We have 8 par 4s where I'm going to be hitting probably a sand wedge into. And that's way too many to have that. I really have hardly any holes at all where I'm going to be hitting over that. And even still, I'm usually closer to the green on those holes. And we'll see how challenging they are as we kind of get there. We have a little zigzag motion in terms of sloping on this hole. Don't mind it. Seems a little bit artificial, but I don't mind it a lot. Again, green's super tiny. This green is exactly what I hate to see on short par 4s. It is way too simple to be a short par 4. When you have short par 4s, the green has to be difficult because it's your only defense on the hole. If the green's not difficult, birdies and eagles are going to become way too common on these holes. I'm about to be on the other little green over here, maybe even long in the sand, in fact. I also will say, I kind of noticing this as we go along. It seems like your little light rough tipped bunkers are just kind of disappearing at this point. One thing I've preached before and I'll preach again is consistency when you're building courses. If you're going with one style of bunker, continue with that style of bunker the entire course. If you're doing one style of green, like these small greens, continue with that the entire course. It makes the course feel a lot better when it ties in. See, now I think we've completely forgotten about the light rift tip bunkers. I'm not sure if there's going to be any more as we go along this course. This again is another one of those holes where I'm just flying over everything. If the wind was not directly in my face here, I would be hitting a driver and just flying over this every single time. Be careful with your tees. You want to have your max distance from your tees to be about 330. You want to plan for drivers to hit their balls about 330 from the tee at furthest. They can reach a little bit longer on good days or the wind's at their back. You can reach probably 350 from the tee, the wind's at your back. I do really like this right here. This is beautiful. I don't like how simple the layup area is. It's just not too simple. You do still have to plan for the trees, but just feel like there needs to be just a little bit of something else up here. Maybe just one bunker or something just to add a little bit of flavor into this area. a little bit too empty,
Okay,
but
we're out of
I
that
do really
tree.
like
Lucky
this.
now. We've got about 130
Okay, this is
spots
kind of what I
left.
was worried
Where to
about.
go
You
from
see,
here?
with how small these greens are, tiers and these are very difficult to do correctly. You would have to basically split the green in half to do tiers, and this tier up here is way too small to have a pin. I mean, you could definitely have a pin up here, and you could have it playable and have it work, but in my opinion, that is way too small to have an actual pin up here. This plateau just needs to be bigger. I feel like you kind of need to have this plateau take over this entire back part of the green instead of just having this weird little section right here, which probably isn't even going to have a pin on it anyway because it's way too small, way too close to any other slopes. So I would just bring this tier across this entire green so you have a really nice top area up here instead of just two semi-playable areas as it is right now. Slope. I don't. Actually, I really don't like this now that I'm looking at it. Having this green up here, that's obviously for another hole. This green's way too small anyway. But to have this entire right side of this green funnel balls down onto another green, which isn't going to hold anything, and then funnel them even further, what's going to happen is you're going to have shots coming into this hole, land up here, roll all the way down, across this green, all the way down over to here. And then you're hitting across a different green to your green, just not the right thing to have here, in my opinion. This is a big red flag for this hole. Yeah, it's just I haven't seen a lot on this course that I would say is a no-go, but this, in my opinion, is a no-go. I understand it is a video game, and who cares if you're chipping across another green, but you want to keep things realistic, and this is just something that would not fly at a regular course. This would be a major point of contention in the golf course to have people's balls rolling across other greens very consistently. And hell, if I pulled a shot a little bit, I'm just about landing on this green. I don't know, I don't like this area. I feel like a lot better could have been done in this height difference right here, a lot better utilization of this. Personally, I would have preferred some type of swell in between these two greens to kind of hold shots from getting all the way to the other. But that would require you basically to completely blow up this green and completely blow up this green and start fresh here. Again, our light rough has just disappeared on the bunkers. I don't know where that went, but it's okay. I will say, this is a very good course. I am having to get a little bit critical of things, but I do think it is necessary in some areas. I think there's a lot of things that just need to be changed. Uh, this is definitely an experienced designer. I really like a lot of what they are doing, uh, but there are definitely some things that need to be touched up and fixed up. Like just for example, from that tee that I was just, or that green I was just standing on, I could see very, very clearly past all of this and into the just empty open fields out here, which is something I was worried about when we were playing this course. I can tell you tried to raise some hills in the back to kind of give it a little bit of an optical illusion like there isn't any, or there is stuff back there, but I feel like you needed to go a little bit further out here to really encapsulate this place. Like right here, for example, I can see perfectly over these houses and see that there is absolutely nothing out here. There needs to be a little bit more going on so that you don't feel like you're in a video game. You know, you want to be immersed in this course. But I mean, if I even take 2 seconds to glance over here, I can tell this is just empty nothingness and there's nothing going on, which I think has to do with you probably ran out of planting space. You probably planted too much grass, you probably planted too many trees, and you had no more memory left to actually do anything else and place anything else. Uh, just something you really have to take into account when you're a designer. You can't only think about on-course direct decorations with all these plants and stuff. You have to do off-course stuff to give that immersion, to make it feel like you're actually there. And I feel like that's a big major thing that we're missing out here. Is just this. I do like some of these holes. It makes you feel immersed in some of these holes, but when you start to get closer to the edge of the property, that immersion very quickly drops away with how flat and how empty this entire plot of land is. And like I do really like the dead trees, but at the same time I feel like it's overkill. Like you're never gonna see a forest like this of just pure dead trees everywhere. It seems a little bit too fake. Because like I will tell you this, if you base this off of my course Barren Point, which I'm just assuming just because it used the same grass and same dead trees, I based that off of a real life location where the trees were dead and they were following riverways. I'm not actually sure if there are any dead forests like this anywhere in the world with golf courses, anything even close to this. I may be completely wrong. I don't know. It just seems a little bit too far out there to have just complete huge forest and a huge plot of land with only dead trees. I think you have a couple trees here and there, but I mean it's not much at all. All right, back to the hole 11 here. I do like this green. It's one of the larger greens we've seen. I do like it. I don't really like this little hump right here, kind of creating a bowl right here. I don't know. It's not the worst in the world. Not my favorite, but the worst. Not a bad green. Not a bad green. Alright, let's smack that on down there.
On this approach. That was fantastic.
Alright, another blind shot. Can't see the fairway. We just got way too many of these. I'm going to be honest. There have been way too many shots where I can't see what's happening in the fairway. And I know people that play... I can't remember how to change camera angles. Let me see. Yeah, I know people who play in this camera angle. I can't remember the YouTuber. There's a YouTuber who plays in this camera angle, and it can be very frustrating sometimes when you can't see literally anything on half the holes because, you know, you're just blocked out visually. Alright, this one again. I don't like how this light rough is. It just seems a little bit unrealistic. I would just bring this light rough and connect it up. There's no point in having this little heavy rough part right here. In my opinion. Right here doesn't seem too bad. It just seems really weird right here because it thins up really bad right here. Maybe if this was a little wider, it might connect a little bit better. Again, though, it's another one of those holes where I feel like I'm overshooting everything when I use my max. And I'm not even using the strongest hitting club set. I forgot what it is, but there's one club set that goes higher than me, or one archetype that goes higher than me. I think I'm just using Woodsman. Holy crap. Yeah, I'm gonna be honest. This green is terribly too small. Way too small.
We'll get through these branches
A
eventually.
little bit of a tree there.
That's just gonna stay in the long grass.
Yeah, this green, there's not much I can say on it other than that this is just too small.
Okay, here's your fourth.
The shape's interesting. I like the shape. The shape's kind of cool. I don't like how this bunker is very inconsistent with the width in this rough right here. You see how it's really, really thin here. It gets wider up here. You want to keep that same width to keep it kind of formal looking as you go through. I don't like red slopes that take you into nothing. Like, this would have been nice if the fairway led all the way into the bunker, then your ball might roll all the way in. But instead, what's going to happen here is people are going to catch this red slope along this whole length of the green, and they're just going to take them right into this light rough right here, which, in my opinion, is not how you should have it. If you're going to have balls taken off of a green, you want to have them come into a low where they can chip from, or you want to have them come into a bunker or a penalty area. Having them just come into heavy rough or light rough that's just a foot off the green just isn't right, in my opinion. Personally, though, I would just blow up the screen and completely restart. The screen's just way too small. There's just not enough room. Not enough room, especially for the shape of green. Immediately off the tee, this is one of those things where I was telling you your tees are way too close. There's just not a lot of space between these tees. This is just bad right here. And also, this tee's just randomly shifted off to the right a little bit. If you're going to have tees in a straight row, make sure they're all, like, lined up straight. This red tee's just randomly offset a little bit. And again, this brings us to, like, there's no tee boxes out here. I mean, your tee box is a flat area right next to the other green. There's no actual, like, there's no red tee box, there's no white tee box, there's no blue tee box. Like, if you're going to have tees, you're going to have a tee here, tee here, tee here, tee here, and you're going to have them staggered apart to kind of get that difference in distances that your players are looking for. Coming on here, this is really, really weird. I don't know what's going on here. I don't know why you'd have this random cutout. Just bring it up and make a smooth little fairway. There's no reason in having a weird little bump right here. Uh, all right, what do we got here? It seems to be, I don't know. I guess it's not meant to go down that way because of the tree line right here. I am tempted because I think it might give you a little bit better angle into the green. But yeah, I remember this green from earlier. Uh, I don't mind this one. Seems a little bit too flat up through here, but I think that's okay. I don't think that's a huge problem. Again, though, I can't see a lot from the tee at all. There's no visual going on here anymore.
This one's about
All
100
right,
yards
let's go ahead
from
and
the
get
pin.
us up on the green. See, I think this bunker being a little bit closer to this green. Remember how earlier I was talking about this swell right here? This bunker being a little bit closer so you can actually play off of this slope would be so nice. Like, I would love to land maybe 5 yards short of the green and catch a bounce off of this slope that actually carries me up onto the green. Trip to the green, a little bit more interesting. We got a little hollow right here. I don't really like it. I mean, there might be a pin back there, but I don't really think that this is the best spot to have a swell like this, especially it being so tiny. There's not really a lot of room for anything to go on right there. Whoa, ball,
Well,
whoa.
he missed the green, but that's all right. Life does go on. Setting up a 5-foot putt
All
here.
right, get it on in there.
Played.
Again, tees are way too close. I saw that from the last green. Again, I can't see the fairway. There's just grass and trees. I can't really see anything that's going on here. I can't see any of your bunkers. I can't see your fairway. I mean, you want to have it visual. You want to have all this be visual. Whether that is like placing a huge mound that kind of raises this entire area up so that you can see it from the tee, or that's raising the tee box up so you can actually see down onto the fairway. It needs to be one of those two, or even a combination of the two. Like for me, if I was to fix this hole, I would come in here with a very big soft brush, like about this big, and I would raise this entire area by about 20, 30 feet to make it visible from the tee so I can see those bunkers and kind of see some of those slopes. Because we've just had way too many blind shot holes out here. Again, consistencies with just having light rough on the bunkers, and we're back to the just plain fairway bunkers now. This is a lot better of a landing zone, though. See how I can't get past these bunkers anymore? I like this landing zone a lot more.
A little less
Ooh,
pure on that
what a
swing.
bad shot, John. I was about to say, a fairway in regulation there would be a steal.
Too bad.
All right. I don't mind this green because it is a shorter par 5. It's very reachable, so you want to have it be very challenging. I will say your pinnable area percentage isn't a lot. You've got a little pencil thin pin area through all of this, and then you got a little pencil thin pinned area up here. There's not a lot of space to put pins here, and even less space around those pins to play with. And that's what I was saying by these small greens can be very challenging to have anything interesting go on in them. Because once you start to add slopes in these small greens, you basically have nowhere to put a pin anymore because the green's so tiny. So just something to keep in mind. Like I understand small greens was the style of this course, but it can get in your own way sometimes, especially when you want to make something interesting.
Okay, 7 under par at the moment.
Uh,
See what
I
happens.
don't mind this. I would like to see these bunkers be a little bit more visual from the tee. It'd be really nice to actually be able to see them a lot, but instead it kind of seems like they're overgrown. In my opinion, what I would have done is taken away some of this grass in front of these bunkers to kind of give it a little bit more visual that leads into them, so they're a little bit more out there. The green, yeah, I can't see the green surface again. Just another one of those blind holes where I just can't see what's going on. And this green, I was waiting to get to this. This is another one of those greens where, man, it is way, way too small. There's way too much going on this green for how tiny it is. Uh, where you've got this pin right here, I would never put a pin. It's on a yellow slope, and it's way too close to the other yellow slopes. If you're above this pin, I don't even know if you can get this ball to stop, really. You got maybe a pin down here and maybe a pin in the top. But I mean, overall, this green is horrendous. There's no easy way to put it. It's just way too small, way too much going on. The shape isn't interesting. Uh, And this is also that same green that I was talking about earlier, that it ends up feeding balls kind of down onto this green and then down off this green all the way to the other side. Uh, yeah. I overall though I do really like the look from the tee. I like all this grass. I would like to see the bunkers be a little more visual. It's just this green just isn't it. I mean, it's just, in my personal opinion,
On that one.
it's the worst green out here by far. And we had that other green that was really, really tiny as well with way too much going on. And I forgot what hole number that was. You see this right here? This is kind of what I was meaning. Like, this is on way too much of a slope. I didn't hit that ball hard at all. I hit it at recommended power, and I still went 10 feet by.
Quite well done. Might need a bit more club. We got
All right, another hole where we really can't see much at all what's going on. Well, I do like the water running through here. I would like to see the water be a little bit more visual, though. It's hard for me to really even tell there's water here unless I'm really looking for it. Let me just check the course flyover. I mean, I can kind of see that there's water there, but it's hard to see. Also, let me see, your water is running to nowhere. That's something I would also try to avoid when you're making courses, is water that leads to absolutely nothing. This, you could argue this is just a like waste area that just holds water, but typically if I'm going to have a river or something, I'm going to have it lead to the ocean, or I'm going to have it come from a mountain. You want to have the reason for the water to be there instead of it just be standing water a lot of the times. One thing I also didn't know, or I also noticed, this is a no cart path course, so we don't have any cart path out here.
16.
That's something you have to add, but I will say cart path ties together a golf course a lot better. Uh, I mean, do I even need to say it? This green is way too small. There's way too much going on here. This green needs to be at least 3 times the size. This thing is so small. I do like this bunker back here. This bunker is really beautiful. I like these raised bunkers with the raised back ends a lot more than I like your just flat bunkers. These are very hard to see. They're always very hidden, and visually there's not a lot interesting going on with them. They play well. They play interesting design-wise. They're very nice, but in terms of actual like looks and everything, they don't really have it. Bunkers like this where they have the back ends raised up and in the sky, that's where you really get that good visual look. Yeah, let's just go ahead and get this hole out of the way. There's just a few greens out here that your greens have been small for the most part, and they've been slopey kind of. And I feel like there are three of these greens out here where you took that to the extreme and it really hurt the hole. Like that last hole, for example, that green is just unbelievably too small. All right, taking a look at this hole. I don't like this light rough here. Just I would like to see a little bit more of a hazard or something right here instead of just having light rough running through here. Maybe just a lot of big slopes in the fairway or something going on. I don't really like that there's just light rough here. Because it seems like this is almost like guarding your green, and why would you have light rough guard the green? Doesn't really seem too interesting, you know. In terms of the green, this is a lot more of what I kind of design. I design these medium-sized greens, typically with 2 tiers or something in it, and some medium movement kind of heading into them. A couple little spots that'll take you off and stuff. This is kind of what I meant by it. If you're going to have a red slope on the edge of your green, you want to have it do something. This one actually brings you into a bunker, so this one brings you into a bunker instead of just setting you in the light rough or heavy rough. I like this green a lot more. I like the size a lot more. Contours could be argued that they're not the best in the world, but they are playable. They work, and that's the most important part. The 3 greens so far today that we've seen that are way too small and way too slopey, they don't work. They don't work how intended. They don't work how they should. It's just way too small. It'll be way too frustrating for some players. Some players, honestly, because it's a video game and people have so much ADHD, there are people who, when they get to a really hard hole or a really weird hole like that, they will quit instantly. I've seen it in my own courses that I've built. I've seen people quit and do stuff like that. It's just, you have to keep your players' attention. You have to keep them happy the whole time. The second you start throwing in like stupid, difficult stuff, they're just going to leave the course and go to a different one. This is something I wanted to mention from earlier. Your number 9, which should be one of the most interesting holes in the course, was extremely boring. Now that we're on 18, also very weird and very boring. I'll get to talking this a little bit more, but you want to have your 9 and your 18 to be the most interesting holes in the course. When you have holes
like 9 and 18 that don't have anything going on, it's very boring and it doesn't feel like a spectacular finish. You want to have a big spectacular finish after that front nine, after that last nine. You want to have it feel like those holes are really something. That's why some of the best holes in the world that you'll see are 9, are 18, because the architects know how important those holes actually are. I'll say here, this is just going to be a problem. This entire hole right here is just an issue. We don't even have out of bounds here. That's something else that we need to bring up. You haven't had out of bounds anywhere on the course, and this in particular is going to be a huge issue on this hole, because what happens when I bounce on this and I roll all the way down here? Hell, I could go even further down this road just because of how big it is. That's just something you want to keep in mind. Like, your players are going to hit bad shots, so you want to have out of bounds. Like, theoretically, I could end up all the way down at the end of this road down here if I hit it just right, or I could end up tucked up against the house over here. And personally, I just really don't like the idea of a green being completely surrounded by concrete. Much less that your fairway just has absolutely nothing going on. I mean, there's zero thought into this drive at all, which that's just something you never want to have on a golf course. You don't want to have a spot where it's literally a football field length in the fairway, width in the fairway, and there's just nothing happening. In terms of the green, though, yeah, this is what I was talking about. You cannot put a pin on a yellow slope under any circumstance. Unless you are playing with slow greens, you might be able to, but nobody does that. Nobody does slow greens. This is just unacceptable. You want to be following the 9 square rule I've mentioned in some of my other videos. When you come up to the pin, it's inside of 1 square, and then every square attaching to it, all of these 8 ends up coming out to a full 9 square. So when you're working with these greens, you've got to have this full 9 square be green. You don't want to have any yellow, you don't want to have any red in these 9 squares, and you also want to make sure that you have all 9 of these squares. So if you are too close to the green, or one of these squares is getting cut off, you are too close to the edge of the green. You want to be further away. All right, so let's go ahead and hit one on into here. Really bad shot, but it doesn't matter. Get a little bounce off the path.
And that'll do. Grab your putter.
All right, let's see what we can possibly do here. Let's see, this is what I mean. It's on a yellow slope. There's no way I'm getting that ball to stop.
Too firm on
I
that.
have to be below the pin.
Good line.
And even so, ball kind of wants to come back to me.
All right, this one is over.
All right, now that we're finishing up the course, I will say overall, I really like the course. The course is beautiful. I mean, it was really interesting. I like the dead trees. I like the grass. I like the whole feel of the area. I wish that you would have used a little bit more of the land around you. You kind of kept it centered just to the course. And I have a feeling that was due to memory and object counter. You probably ran out of one of the two to where you couldn't place anything else. But you want to keep that in mind before you start designing your course. Like, hey, I need to have all of this be visual, not just the on-course stuff. Like, I need to have stuff off the course be visual so that my player's immersion isn't playing. Other than that, your tee boxes just need to be spread out. Make actual tee boxes. Look at how real golf courses are made. You're going to have, a lot of times, you'll have the red tee box at the start of the fairway. Like, it'll be 120 to 150 yards from the back tee. A lot of times out here, we had red tees that were only 20 yards from the back tee. So you want to have that variation of distance. It gives the course a lot more interest when you're looking down a tee box and you see other tee boxes kind of spread out, and it makes the course more creative as well. It's something a lot of people skip on, is they'll just place one tee box down or one tee set down and they won't bother with any others. You need to have all of them. Your greens, too small. In my opinion, some of them worked really well. Like, I believe number 1, number 2, and I think number 3, those all worked really well. I mean, they were small greens. They only had one slope. They only went left to right. They might have had one red slope in the green. If you're going to do small greens, that's how you do them. Holes, like, I can't remember the hole numbers, but that par 3 that I was complaining about, where it's just way too small, and a couple of those other holes that I was complaining about, the greens where they're way, way too small, that's where it can become your enemy. You need to make sure, if you're going to do small greens, they kind of have to be uninteresting. That's kind of the sad reality with small greens. You can't really have a lot going on in them. When you start to add a lot in them, it makes them unrealistic and unplayable a lot of the times. So I would just keep that in mind when you go further down the line. Be very careful with making your greens too small because they can get too small too fast. Your greens were already at the minimum size, in my opinion, and then you made ones even smaller than that, and I mean they just came out way, way too small. Other than that, I liked your bunkers. I'm not a fan of the bunkers that just sit on the bottom. I like bunkers, as I was saying earlier, that kind of run up a hill so you can kind of see them more visually. But it is your bunker style. I'm not gonna crap on it at all. I did like it. They played very interestingly. The only thing I will say about the bunkers is I wish you would have kept a very consistent, like, I wish you would have consistently had light rough above the bunkers or not. It kind of felt like we were going back and forth through the entire course. Other than that, I really liked the course. I mean, it was very, very interesting. It looked beautiful. It's just, I think if you would take some of these things that I mentioned here and add them into your next course, you can have an absolutely astonishing course. I mean, there's definitely a lot of good potential here for you as a designer. I'm seeing a lot of very interesting things. I mean, I can tell that you're coming into these things not with just, oh, I'm going to build a golf course, but with, I'm going to have some design element to my holes. I really liked a lot of the slopes and the fairways, a lot of the movement. It's just, I think personally, for you to become a really good golf course creator, I think you'd bring those green sizes up to about a medium. And I think that would suit you very well. And just separating those tee boxes out and keeping those bunkers consistent, I think this right here, I would put at about a B tier course. If you did some of the things that I said, this could be an S tier course very, very fast. I mean, you're very close to being a really, really good designer. Other than that, I think that's all I have to say today. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.